Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
All right. Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman live on your radio. Hard-hitting news the networks refuse to use, no doubt, starts now. This, my fellow Americans, is the broadcast for April 30th in the year of our Lord 2025, promoting God, family, country, protecting life, liberty, and property, rejecting revolution unless it's Jesus revolution. I'm telling you right now, we got a lot going on, ladies and gentlemen, and we're just getting started. Our guest today will be James Edwards, thepoliticalcesspool.org. We'll get to him in a quick second, but to kick this off right, in June 2018, Maxine Waters opened up Pandora's box, folks. Out of control. Firing up a crowd of her supporters, the left-wing radical lawmaker urged Americans to harass and intimidate Trump officials. It was the zero-tolerance immigration policy. Let's make sure we show up wherever we have to show up. And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you make a crowd. You push back on them. You tell them they're not welcome. They're not welcome anymore, anywhere. Now, 100 days into the second Trump administration, well, leading Democrats are literally pulling a Maxine Waters. They're out of control. J.B. Pritzker, whacked out Illinois governor, leading the charge. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about, hey, are they creating a summer of violence? You know, when Trump won last November, everybody was kind of docile, kind of quiet. Let's see what's going on kind of thing. Now they're cranking it up 100 days in. The question becomes, what does the next 100 days look like? Let's play the soundbite from Maxine Waters back in 2018. Here it is.
And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere. And Mr. President, we will see you every day, every hour of the day, everywhere that we are, to let you know you cannot get away with this. Thank you so very much.
There's whacked out Maxine Waters. You're talking about an elected official that gets paid a government check by we the taxpayers, literally, in my opinion, creating a I don't know, what do you want to call that thing? A sedition scenario? It's hard to say what that really was and is, but she's been calling for violence all over the place in her history. The Democrats are loose lips. They do that. But J.B. Pritzker now, Republicans cannot know a moment of peace, he says. Yeah, he literally calls for political violence. So let's listen to J.B. Pritzker's soundbite. This is modern time. He just said this a few days ago at a big event. Listen to this.
Never before in my life have I called for mass protests, for mobilization, for disruption. But I am now.
Disruption? Now listen to the details.
These Republicans cannot know a moment of peace. They have to understand that we will fight their cruelty with every megaphone and microphone that we have. We must castigate them on the soapbox and then punish them at the ballot box.
James Edwards, welcome to the show. Are these Democrats calling for war, and we're going to see a summer of violence like we've never seen before?
I don't know about the second part. I hope not. But to answer the first part of your question, I think obviously the answer is yes. They are absolutely calling and potentially will cause some sort of unrest and violent disturbance in this country. This is who they are. This is totally different than the typical campaign rhetoric you expect, where you do draw on some of these adjectives. I mean, for instance, Pat Buchanan would so often say his people were the Buchanan Brigades and we were going to take our pitchforks and march to Washington. I mean, that was all rhetorical. Everybody knew that they weren't actually going to take pitchforks there and use them on the people. There are polls that have come out. This is why this is so different. I mean, there are polls that have come out just very recently where I think up to 30 and 40% of self-avowed Democrats have said it is justified to assassinate the president, to assassinate Elon Musk. I mean, they're talking about outright justifiable assassinations in their warped and deranged and violent minds. And so when you have politicians go up there and dog whistle, or I don't even know if it's so much of a dog whistle, they're absolutely saying, get out and confront them. They cannot have peace. The word peace, they cannot have peace. I mean, that's certainly much more than saying you need to express your difference of opinion with these people. You need to let your voice be heard. To say that they should have no peace when simultaneously you're getting these polls from Democrats and left-wing activists saying it is okay. Political assassination is justified. That is, you're working towards something there, Sam, that is not going to be good.
Not only is it not going to be good, James, but the question becomes, what does that mean? Okay, when you start to say, I'm calling for disruption. I've never done this before, but I'm doing it now. And then you, in the past, I don't know if you guys know, but Pritzker and Maxine Waters and others have compared Trump and Republicans to Nazis. And then you go, okay, well, wait a minute. But he calls for political violence. And so you got to ask yourself, what does this phrase mean? You cannot know a moment of peace. And then you compare that to political violence. What is political violence? When does it become rhetoric, free speech? When does it cross the line? When do violent acts kind of grow out of the leadership rhetoric? A quick example is the Southern Poverty Law Center, has promoted this rhetoric against all conservatives for quite some time. And then this guy basically tried to blow up at a, Family Research Council or whatever, or organization, and tried to go in there with a gun.
Corkins was his name.
Yeah, tried to go in there with a gun and all this kind of stuff. And he blatantly said, hey, the rhetoric by the SPLC. So when do we talk political violence? I guess that's not physical. It's speech or whatever. When does it cross the line? How do we deal with this? Because they're ratcheting this up. I don't understand why Kash Patel hasn't sent the FBI to arrest the governor.
I agree. Well, because this is it, Sam. I mean, you are dealing with, obviously, the governor of Illinois, Maxine Waters, this longtime congresswoman. They're not going to come out and say you need to go out and start killing Trump supporters. But in the context of this history of left-wing activists engaging in this sort of behavior, but in the past, you're going back to Floyd Corkins, who said that he went to the Family Research Council to kill these people for opposing abortion and homosexuality because he was inspired. And this isn't like some loose interpretation where we think he may have been inspired. They always play that game with conservatives. Well, he was inspired by this because allegedly he had gone to a website or something before. No, Floyd Lee Corkins said flat out in his own voice, I did this because the SPLC, motivated me to do this, with their constant demonization and outlandish comparisons to conservative activists as Nazis and everything else that we all get called. All right, that's one thing going back a few years, but now in the current political climate, which is far more polarized than it's ever been at any time, and I mean at any time in American history, much more polarized than it was even during the war between the states, I believe. And then you have all of this rhetoric online. You go to Democratic partisans' social media, left-wing activists, Antifa, BLM. You go to Sky Blue, which is like the Twitter for these radical left-wing people now, and they are calling for outright violence and political assassination. So it is not some sort of faint, convoluted connecting of the dots. When you hear rhetoric like this, it is a direct and bold straight line from, hey, disrupt, give them no peace. When you're sort of throwing that fuel onto this fire that's already burning within their fever camps and their fever swamps, it is no exaggeration to say that someone is going to get violent or attempt. I mean, they already tried to kill Trump last year. That they're going to try to start assassinating people that are associated with Trump. I mean, you can see that very clearly being a very real and distinct possibility.
So the question is, are we going to end up with a summer of violence, though? Did they start out quiet? Now they're finding their sea legs. Are they going to, and the question becomes, do the Democrats, does George Soros, does J.B. Pritzker, does Maxine Waters team up with gangs and terrorists and to incite violence?
Well, have they already done that? What do you call BLM? Antifa.
Well, let's talk about that. That's the whole point. They already have. This is Liberty Roundtable Live.
Imagine a school where faith and integrity are at its center, where heritage and responsibility instill character, where educating both hearts and minds brings about academic excellence. There is a school in American Fork where character and embracing the providence of a living God are fundamental, where students' national test scores average near the 90th percentile. Based on LDS principles and a love of country, now in our 39th year, American Heritage School is accepting fall enrollment for kindergarten through high school. What would you do for your child? Give them an education that will prepare them for life. Located east of the Temple in American Fork, American Heritage School is a remarkable and affordable alternative. Visit us, find us online, or in the Yellow Pages. American Heritage School in American Fork.
Step into the boots of the American West with Range Magazine, where grit meets grace. This is a front row seat to the stories, struggles, and triumphs of ranchers, farmers, and stewards of the land. From jaw-dropping photography to no-nonsense reporting, Range brings you the untold tales of life on the range. Whether you're a city dweller with a cowboy's heart or living life where the pavement ends, Range speaks to the soul of the West. Subscribe today at rangemagazine.com.
Are you ready to stand up for your community and support your local sheriff? Join the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association and become a vital member of the Sheriff's Citizens Posse. At cspoa.org, we empower citizens like you through weekly webinars, arming you with the knowledge to back your constitutional county sheriff. Together, we can uphold our Constitution and ensure liberty and justice for all. Your community needs you now more than ever.
Back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. Right before the pause, James Edwards, thepoliticalcesspool.org, mentioned Act Blue. And right now, I don't know if you know this, but Trump called for an investigation by Attorney General Pam Bondi into Act Blue, which is used across the Democratic Party's ecosystem to collect donations online. Now, the interesting thing about this is they say the inquiry is extensively meant to look into possible illegal donations made by people in someone else's name. They call it known as straw donations, as well as hard dollar contributions from donors. Anyway, bottom line is the Democrats are coming unglued, saying, how dare Donald? He's making it impossible for us to compete in elections. And Mr. Trump asked for a report on the results on Miss Bondi's investigation for within 180 days. Now, I appreciate that. It's one of the key financial cogs of the left. But this is the stuff behind the scenes that's making them move to violence, James.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if Steve Stockman had done something like that. They would have just assassinated him wherever they found. If you look at what they did for doing nothing, imagine. But yes, I mean, these are violent people. The left has always been violent. I mean, say what you will. I know everybody on the right gets compared to Nazis. What about the communists? Which are their ideological forebears? But what did they kill? By the estimates, history tells us at least 10 times as many people. So this is where they come from. I mean, this is their people. going back now 80 years, 90 years, 100 years. But you saw all of this in 2020. I mean, just 6 months of wanton anarchy and violence in the streets from BLM and Antifa. So they have already activated their groups in this way before. I was a little surprised they weren't reactivated before the last election. I don't know if Soros, got tired of cutting checks or what was really going on there. But I do believe this, that what we saw in 2020 was no organic.
Yeah, it wasn't grassroots like they want you to believe. Sure.
Exactly. No, it was all orchestrated. And so these people, these demon cells, can be unleashed again. And I think, yes, I mean, we knew that the Democrats and the left, or whatever you want to call them, communist, Marxists, they weren't going to just be on their heels forever. I do think there was a legitimate amount of backpedaling, the way Trump just started rolling them with these executive orders. I think they were shocked that they lost in the way that they lost. I do believe that. And then you just had this flood of incredible executive orders to where they were being attacked on all fronts, being hit on all fronts in such a way that they couldn't figure out where to mount their resistance. And so, but we knew that wasn't going to last forever. So now here we are, 100 days in, and a lot of people are talking about what Trump has done and hasn't done, and just assessing those first 100 days. And we will.
The last point
but
that
they
I
are
want to make
reformatting.
is Trump has given Pam Bondi 180 days to look into this. James, I don't mean to be rude, but Trump doesn't understand. The clock is ticking. 120 days have already gone for Congress. That's their whole working calendar gone in terms of work days. In other words, it's probably a quarter of or half of the whole year, because when you get Christmas and Thanksgiving and recesses and this and that and the other, Trump's running out of time, man. I don't know if he realizes that, but he's running out of time. And pretty soon the Republicans aren't going to have hardly anything to run on except for maybe somewhat the border.
Well, I mean, I agree to a degree. I mean, this you are right, of course, in so much as, I mean, the way that this perpetual campaign cycle exists in America. An incoming president with a mandate like Trump has about 6 months of hard political currency before everybody starts focusing on the midterms. I mean, it is just ridiculous. Out of a 4-year term, you have about a year, the first 6 months after the midterms and after the general election, every 4 years with the presidential election, to get anything done. 1 out of 4 years is basically all you've got. And so his 6 months are going to be up a little later this summer, and then everybody's going to be start to turn their eyes towards what they need to do to get reelected in the midterms, and you just lose some of that steam. However, I mean, again, just in looking at everything that has been done, it has been very good. I know we're going to get into that, but a lot of conflicts with judges, and then yes, Congress. You got to understand, of course, and I know you do, and I know that your listeners do. At the very least, half of Congress, their only job, as they see it, is to oppose whatever Trump tries to do, no matter how good it would be for the country. So that's a hard thing to deal with.
I believe that's a Republican thing, too, though. I believe that Mike Johnson is slow-walking everything Trump's doing. So here's my statement on the first 100 days, and then I had recommendations for the next 100 days, and I want you to basically provide that kind of thought process as well. Trump's first 100 days were undermined by lack of checks and balances, derelict Congress, activist judges, dishonest media, with we the people missing in action. That's what happened the first 100 days. Trump did a phenomenal job in many ways. There's some things that he did that I didn't really like, but for the most part, he's done tremendous and led by example, but he's undermined by all those things. The judges, the Congress, the people are, out to lunch. And so Trump is stuck, and it's not his fault. James?
Yes, I think, with Pam Bondi, by the way, 180 days it's a pretty long time to get anything, that's probably
why
too long.
Why don't we get that done in 30 days? Don't tell me the government can't move mountains and get it done in 30 days, James. Come on.
Well, the government can do whatever it sets its mind to.
And if you tell them 30 days and it takes Pam 45, fine, I get it. But 180 days, and then she comes back with a preliminary report that Congress has to discuss, and then, hey, the congressional session's over, now we start over in January. I mean, we're losing. They don't understand. We're losing time. We haven't even passed a restricted budget bill of any kind. Forget the reduction in spending. It's all talk. It isn't happening.
Well,
so we're losing time, James, big time.
This is a problem, I think. Well, I would say one more thing about Pam Bondi before I tell you the problem. Pam Bondi, I mean, I was ecstatic. I was in Michigan for a talk last week, and by the way, talking about the first 100 days, Trump was up there, I think, 2 days after I left. He was up in the Detroit area yesterday to do this 100-day speech. I found out when I was leaving. I'll tell you a little more about that trip in a moment. I don't want to get too sidetracked, but it was an amazing event, a lot of energy. But I found out when I was leaving that he was going to be up there yesterday, which was 2 days after I left. But nevertheless, one of the things that happened last week with regard to Pam Bondi was that they went and arrested, one of these judges, which a lot more of that needs to happen.
Amen. That's a good start.
Hopefully that'll be a shot across the bow. But yes, I mean, so again, in order to get anything done, this is a problem with the American experiment as given to us by our founding fathers when you have a multicultural society that does not have anything in common. So when you have something like that, our system of government was never intended to work for a society like this. I think people forget that this is a fundamental thing here, is that our system of government was set up, frankly, for European Christian peoples, and it was never meant to work in a society where everybody is at odds with each other and there is no common vision. So when you have these systems of checks and balances, the judiciary, the executive, the legislative, okay, that can work to an extent if everybody is sort of homogenous and they have common culture and heroes and beliefs and system of government and things like that. When you have this Tower of Babel that we live under now, the only thing you will ever get out of this is, as you have just been articulating, Sam, total gridlock, and really nothing gets done. And if anything does get done, it's always a progressive shift more to the left because they've got the wherewithal to just stick to their guns and they have all the institutional support and they just wear you down. And the Republicans have never really had that. And of course, our people have to work for a living. They can't go out and burn down buildings and do all the other things that advances leftist causes. So that is why when you're looking at Congress, you're looking at these judges. I mean, hell, how are you ever going to get anything done when you have to have the consensus of all how many federal court judges are there? It's over 600. Let's just say 688. I think that's the number. You have to have the consensus of 688 judges to get anything done. And if one of them disagrees with you, they're going to overrule the president. I mean, what kind of system of government is that? And then the Congress, I mean, all of these squabbling people, squabbling nations coming in there and looking after themselves and not the best interest of the collective, because you can't look after the best interest of the collective if there is no collective. And that's why nothing's going to get done. So this is a problem. I mean, ultimately, I am glad that, all this rhetoric about King George was a tyrant. King George was this. I mean, he really wasn't. I mean, wartime rhetoric. I'm glad that we are free only because that revolution was worth fighting, because if we were part of Great Britain, we'd be about 30 years further down the sinkhole. We wouldn't have freedom of speech. I mean, in Europe, people go to jail for having a difference of opinion. I mean, we might be there soon here. You just lose your job and get kicked off of social media and credit card platform places. But, I mean, King George would have been an absolute delight compared to Maxine Waters and the governor of Illinois and things like that. So,
and by the way, that's
what
not
can
to
Trump
praise
do?
King George. That's just to put it in context, right?
Well, I mean, it just is what it is. I mean, ultimately, what he did and the reasons that brought forth our revolution were nothing compared to what our people are faced with now from our own government. So it's just food for thought as we go to
Yeah,
break.
but I would reject King George, too.
I mean, compared to some of these people we're talking about, yeah, I mean, yes, he would have been better. But,
All right,
I mean, I'm not
ladies and
saying,
gentlemen.
you see what I'm saying.
James Edwards wants to go back to the King George times and join England. I reject that notion, ladies and gentlemen. Stand on America, the land of the free, where we kicked out King George and the rest of his clowns. All tyrannical thugs should be stopped. That's my view. Hang tight. James Edwards in second.
proclaiming liberty across the land. You're listening to Liberty News Radio.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Rich Thomason. Wall Street deep in the red this morning following release of a disappointing economic report by the Commerce Department. The U.S. economy shrank in the first quarter. The gross domestic product contracted 0.3%. President Trump celebrates the first 100 days of his second term. He tells a big rally in Warren, Michigan, "You haven't seen anything yet."
You finally have a champion for workers in the White House, and instead of putting China first, I'm putting Michigan first, and I'm putting America first.
The president says he's in the process of taking America back from what he calls a sick political class. An update on that Milwaukee judge in trouble with the feds.
The Wisconsin Supreme Court has suspended Judge Hannah Dugan. The Milwaukee County Circuit Judge is charged with concealing a man to prevent his discovery and arrest by immigration authorities. The FBI arrested Dugan last week, accusing her of escorting Eduardo Flores Ruiz from her court through the jury door after learning ICE agents were in the building seeking his arrest. The state Supreme Court says it's in the public interest to temporarily relieve her of her duties while she's facing the federal charges. Dugan's legal team says it's disappointed the court acted in unilateral fashion. They say Dugan's innocent and look forward to her vindication. I'm Ben Thomas.
Several young men under arrest after a food cart vendor was shot in the arm this morning in New York City's Times Square. The victim expected to recover. The Supreme Court hearing arguments today over plans for an online Catholic charter school in Oklahoma. The question is, should public money flow directly to a religious school? On Wall Street, the Dow is down 665 points. The Nasdaq Composite Index off 448 points. That's a loss of roughly 2.5%. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Hey everybody, Charlie Kirk here. As executive director of Turning Point USA, a national radio host, podcaster, husband, and father of two, my schedule is about as crazy as it can possibly get. 2 years ago, I made the decision to take control of my health, and I chose PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition because I needed a plan that fit my hectic lifestyle. I travel a lot, and my schedule changes every week, so I need something simple. They customized a plan for my body and my schedule, and I quickly lost 30 pounds. Now I have the energy and focus to get through my busy day. PhD will help you too. They won't let you fail. Just give them a call, schedule your weight loss consultation, and see if their program is right for you. Call 855-696-2020. That's 855-696-2020. The first 11 callers who mention the word healthy will get 2 weeks added to their weight loss package. Call 855-696-2020 and mention the word healthy, or visit them at myphdweightloss.com. That is myphdweightloss.com. It worked for me, and it can work for you. myphdweightloss.com.
This is a battle between truth and deceit, a battle between forces that would enslave this country in darkness, and between a media that wants to present you with the truth. We are being censored. America's news outlets no longer provide the truth. 90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in fact.
TheEpochTimes.com. Looking for an IT partner that truly understands your needs? Managed IT Services is the answer. We meet with you regularly to discuss your goals and form a tailored technology plan. Our customers have called us a trusted advisor who delivers. When it comes to IT, we do it all. Firewalls, cloud storage, server migration, and more. Say goodbye to long-term contracts and hello to a team that earns your business month after month. Call 801-706-6980 now and let Managed IT Services transform your IT experience.
As the United States boldly stepped forward in the glorious light provided by its new Constitution in 1787, the nations of the earth were in awe of the newfound strength and hope of this free land. Today, the nation stands at a crossroads. A divergence from the original intent put forth in the United States Constitution has brought grave threats to our beloved nation. A miracle is needed if the United States is to survive. That miracle is again the pure application of the United States Constitution. I'm Scott Bradley. In my To Preserve the Nation book and lecture series, I bring forth truths that will help raise up a new generation of statesmen like those noble Americans who founded this land. Vigorous application of these principles will invigorate and restore the nation. and we may become again the freest, most prosperous, most respected, and happiest nation on earth. Visit topreservethenation.com to begin that restoration.
Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
All right, not to chase a rabbit too deep into the woods, but just a very quick answer about the King George question before we continue on with analysis about Trump's first 100 days. You're listening to, of course, the groundbreaking Liberty Roundtable show with the incomparable Sam Bushman, although he's Sam, I'm James, and he's letting me bring you back in from the break. So what I was saying before, and let me be clear, was a comparison to the things that sparked the American Revolution and the purported tyranny of King George and how much it paled in comparison to the injustices that we face every day here as Americans coming from the left. Now, we have this temporary reprieve with Trump being back in there, and there has been some absolutely fundamental changes and shifts in culture that I never thought I would see happen under the existing system, and we'll continue to talk about that in a moment. But it is a blip on the radar for now. We'll see if it can be sustained going into the post-Trump era and where it goes from there. But there are still a lot of problems in America that have not been solved. And so what I was saying with regards to King George was, of course, I think ultimately it was very good that America won its independence and that the United States was free for a couple of reasons. Number one, just being entirely practical. Very difficult to run your affairs if you have to have an answer from a king who in the 1700s is across the world and it takes a year to get an answer. You got to sail over there, get an answer, sail back. I mean, that's just not realistic. And then, of course, if we had not won our independence, or if we had not fought the war for independence, we would still be part of the United Kingdom, where Sam and I would almost certainly be in prison for sharing the opinions that we have on this program every day. So I'm glad that we did that. However, that being said, as I said before, this system of government was never set up, never intended to be for a multicultural polyglot society that is at constant odds with each other. That is why you have all of this friction, and so that's a problem. Can our people exist and thrive under a monarchy? Sure they can. I mean, throughout Europe, you had great monarchies, you had terrible monarchies. I don't think this form of government that we have right now is the only answer for our people. Our people, if you go back throughout history, have thrived under many different forms of government. But it does need to be a Christ-centered society, and that's a whole nother issue. And anyway, we'll see where it goes. But with regards to the first 100 days.
Yeah, before we get to the first 100 days, you might get your wish. You might get your wish, though, because Donald Trump might end up being the next King George if he has his way. I know it sounds kind of extreme and all that kind of stuff, but here's the deal. Trump went on the Atlantic. I don't know why he'd go with the Atlantic, whacked out liberal news organizations. Why Donald ignores us and continues to prop up these propaganda news organizations is beyond me. But he does, and he loves it. But here's the deal. Trump says this, quote, "I run the country and I run the world." That's what he said in an Atlantic interview, James.
Well, he certainly runs the country as much as the president can, although, as I like to say, he is only the president. But the world, the world certainly bends to his whims in some ways. I mean, they at least react to it. I'll put it that way. But this whole thing, about being anti-king, I'm not anti-monarchy in and of itself. I mean, some monarchies, as I said, would you not rather have good King Wenceslas as our leader as opposed to the United States Congress? I would. But
yeah, and I would prefer the checks and balances because I don't believe it's perfect either, but it's done more for the freedom of people than any other system, bar none. And any failings that it's got are failings of us being faithful or having fidelity there too, not the problem of the given form of government per se. I just can't accept guys that basically are the president. They don't control the purse strings. We have three branches of government. He's only in one branch for a very short time. And to say he runs or I run the country and the world. It's just, hey, even if you think things like that, saying things like that is very, very foolish. Now Trump has dismissed many of Biden's nominees to the United States Holocaust Memorial Council, including Doug Emhoff. So this is interesting how this is working when we talk about the world, because now we're going to have to get into the Holocaust discussion. Very interesting divide. And the reason I say that is anytime you don't buy the official narrative, you're somehow an evil Nazi, Jew hater, whatever kind of discussion. I'm not buying any of that, James. I don't think that this whacked out Doug Emhoff belongs anywhere. So firing him is a great thing. And I don't really believe that we should have a United States Holocaust Memorial Council. What about a Holodomor Memorial Council? What about I can go on and on and on. And so I'm just saying I'm not for this. I think they need to shut down the whole council. Now, see, I say that, though, and then they say I'm a Jew hater and a Nazi lover, and I don't believe the Holocaust happened, and they go through all kinds of lies about what I really believe. I believe whenever you kill people, unless it's self-defense or a needed situation, it's evil. Thou shalt not kill. And I believe that, hey, we're all children of God and we should act like it. I never said the Holocaust didn't happen, although I don't believe the government's narrative. But see, can I say that, or am I now an enemy, right? That's the problem.
Well, if this is an initiative and a taxpayer-funded endeavor, that is not a good allocation of taxpayer funds. There's nothing essential about that to the function of the United States government or to the people. And as you said, a lot of people have a difference of opinion on what did and didn't happen. As with any war, hey, listen, if they told the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth about World War II, it'd be the first war in history where that ever happened. So I doubt it. But what I do know for this, and I interviewed Pat Buchanan about this subject when he wrote the book Churchill, Hitler, and the Unnecessary War. He said, give them everything they've ever said about Hitler, and just for argument's sake say that is exactly how it happened. We allied with someone who was 10 times worse. There's 60 million people killed in communist Russia by the Bolsheviks under Stalin and his predecessors, starving them out in the Holodomor, as you mentioned, and these were Christian people. So he killed 60 million by the best estimates and the best figures that we have. And he's our great ally. So, make sense of all that. But nevertheless, anytime you have taxpayer funding that is going towards anything that is basically, it reminds me of U.S. aid, where it's basically left-wing endeavors that are getting all these funds. And is it necessary for the function of the government? And is it a wise allocation? And if the answer is no, that's good. And if it harms people like Doug Emhoff, or I don't think you can harm him, I'm sure he's very well off. But why not go after the people who tried to kill you, to try to put you in prison? I think I don't have a problem with that. In so much as you just don't want this project to be funded. That's fine. Other things going on in the first 100 days. There are a lot of people out there, and I don't get them. I love them, and I agree with them on a lot of things. But I'm talking about people on the right. And everything Trump does, they are contrarian to. Sam, you have had a very good and even-keeled, thoughtful analysis about the pros and cons of Trump. It is a responsible way to deliver commentary, but there are others on the right who, whatever it is and whatever he does, whatever he says, they find issue with it. I got a letter in the mail from a donor to my radio program, a supporter from Virginia, and he wrote, why not let the man give us...
ThePoliticalCesspool.org. Listen every weekend live on Saturday night or anytime on demand. ThePoliticalCesspool.org. Sorry, James, go.
And no, thank you for the plug. And it reminded me, actually, that we had this conversation with, I can go back not very long ago, January the 18th, we had former Congressman Steve King and Lou Moore, who is on this radio network, Ron Paul's former presidential campaign manager, spent years in Washington as a congressional chief of staff. So January 18th, it was 2 days before the inauguration, and we had Steve and Lou on, and we were anticipating some of the things that Trump may do. And a week later, he had already exceeded just about everything we could have imagined just in that first week in office. And we've been playing catch-up every week since, just trying to stay on top of all of the things that he's done. And so now we assess that and take stock and inventory these first 100 days. And I got this letter from a listener in Virginia who writes, let the man continue to give us assists. The things he is saying and attempting and doing are phenomenal, whether it be securing the border, whether it be deporting illegals. And granted, the deportations could be higher, but you got a lot of problems with the judges on that, as we have mentioned, Sam. And then, of course, one good thing is they are not getting back
Not
in.
only the judges, but governors and all kinds of local municipalities.
See,
Mayors,
that's the problem.
The list goes on and on, James.
Indeed. And then, abolishing the Department of Education, working towards no income tax, potentially. I mean, these are some of the things he's said, some of the things he's done. But abolishing DEI, there's been a lot of that on a real level, on a practical level. Declaring only two genders. I mean, that doesn't sound like a lot, but a lot of pastors don't even do that. Making America healthy again with RFK, calling out South Africa, working towards peace with Russia. Now, you could go on. And, are we going to nitpick that? Are we going to nitpick the fact that
those are fantastic things. I wouldn't nitpick that, James.
No, not you.
Go ahead and skip the break. But here's what I would say. Congress is becoming the enemy of the president, though. Mike Johnson is slow walking everything Trump's trying to do, and I commend Trump for a lot of what he's doing. But, man, Congress has got to codify it, or it'll just be overturned by the next
That's
clown.
right. Well, that's the problem. See, again, this goes back to the problem I said before. When you have a country, a form of government, the founding fathers, and I respect them greatly, but there's no way. I mean, if you look at the original Immigration Act, you look at who was allowed to vote at the founding of this country, I just don't think they could have ever foreseen, nor was it their intention for everybody in the world to be able to just set foot here in America and are immediately considered to be an American and then be able to vote and all of these other things and influence our
vote
politics.
largesse from the Treasury as well.
Well, exactly. And so, but when you've got that's what we've got. Make no mistake about it. That's why the system of government has ceased to be functional. And you got to wonder, is this what's best for us? I mean, that's a debate that it doesn't even pay to have because, I mean, this is what we've got, and you're not going to have any sort of systemic changes in that. I mean, we're not going to go to a monarchy or anything like that, but this is it. I mean, a lot of people need to be left. I don't know. Anyway.
All right, there was a crowd of supporters that celebrated Trump's 100 days, and they told Fox News White House correspondent Peter Doocy their favorite thing that Trump's done in the first 100 days. What would yours be, James?
Favorite thing, I'll tell you, I've got it right here. I know exactly what it is. I was going to say, well, the tariff thing has been interesting. I mean, certainly the border. I think the fact that there has not been a war with Iran yet and nobody's died, for Israel or anything like that, that's good. But the biggest thing happened just last week. I think, to me, it is the executive order on restoring equality of opportunity and meritocracy. So this goes towards eliminating the what was really a racist enshrining by the Civil Rights Act of 1964, this disparate impact issue. And Heather McDonald, she writes for the City Journal. I mean, she nails it. She writes this, and I'll just read a quick paragraph. Disparate impact theory holds that if a neutral, colorblind standard of achievement or behavior has a disproportionately negative effect on minorities, or overwhelmingly on blacks, then it violates civil rights laws. It has been used to invalidate literacy and numeracy standards for police officers and firemen, cognitive skills and basic knowledge tests for teachers, the use of SATs in college admissions, the use of grades for medical licensing exams, credit-based mortgage lending, the ability to discipline insubordinate students, criminal background checks on employees and renters. And I could go on and on and on and on about what disparate impact law has done, Sam. And so basically, again, just to put it in a nutshell, what it says is, yes, you cannot discriminate on terms of race. However, if people of a certain race don't do well, even if your intention was not to discriminate, then therefore the standards themselves must be racist. And that is madness. That is madness beyond any belief. And so by putting forth this executive order, which, again, it's not codified, but it will be the law for the next 3 years at least, and we'll see where it goes after that. But restoring the equality of opportunity and meritocracy.
In Trump's defense, that's a start, and that's all he has control over.
That's right. And see, exactly. That's all he can do. He's doing all he can do. He is only the president. But this, I think, if I had to look at one thing that, easy to say the border, easy to say, foreign policy, easy to say these big ones. But this is one sort of, fine detail that a lot of people aren't talking about. But to me, and it just happened on April the 23rd, so just last week, I think this executive order to do away with disparate impact, restoring equality of opportunity and meritocracy is the name of the order. That to me is that's why I voted for Trump 3 times.
All right. The reason I asked the question is, out of the last 100 days, what is the number one thing that you think President Trump and his team has done? Ducey asked a supporter. Answer: securing that border, the man said. And I would have to agree. Now, I get that we need more deportations, and I've been clear about that. But at the same time, hey, there's all kinds of statistics about how, hey, the border's not the same. We've got the lowest border interactions and crossings, they say, in history, James. You cannot ignore that.
I believe it. Yeah, I mean, and again, that is truly the biggest thing. I mean, that is the thing. But a lot of people are talking about that. If you ask me one thing beyond the obvious, I think it would be what I just mentioned. But yeah, I mean, listen, securing the border is half the battle, but it is an important half. Now you got to deal with the people that are already in here that shouldn't be, and I think
that's a road to hoe and something we need to get done, and we need to help Trump do that. The other thing I would say is this: that was this man's answer, and I agree with him to a large extent. But I personally think the biggest thing Donald Trump has done is flat out said, men are men, women are women. This is not debatable. This is backed by science. This is backed by God. And we at the government are going to basically stand on that reality. To me, I know that sounds crazy that we even have to do that, but to me, that's one of the biggest things Trump has done.
Yes, I agree 100%. So, and again, it has only been 100 days. We're right at the 100-day threshold right now. So that is a lot of fundamental change. And you're talking about, in some cases, undoing going back to the 1960s, 60 years of bad ideas in 3 months. Now, we'll see how long they hold, but it is a start, and it is, as you said, all he can do, or the most he can do. Without Congress, without judges, with everything else.
So anything else of the last 100 days, then I want to move to what we think he should do for the next 100 days, James.
I mean, again, to do a total and comprehensive recap of everything he's done in the first 100 days, I mean, we've been doing that for, the last 100 days.
Anything else to highlight, though? You brought up one I think most people don't know about, so.
I'm sure there's a lot of things I'm not thinking that coming immediately to mind, but I would just say this. First 100 days, I would give him a very, very solid A. Maybe not an A+, but a very, very, very solid A.
All right, next 100 days, what's it looking like?
I'd like to say more of the same. If you can continue at this pace, if you can continue to defund a lot of these organizations and to cut off, if you cut off the feed bag to a lot of these leftist activists who, so many of these leftist endeavors have existed through the, as you say, the largesse of the American government. When they have to do it for free, or when they have to raise their own funds, it's going to be a totally different ballgame. They're not going to do it. They're not lean and hungry like we have been throughout our careers, Sam. And so I'd like to see more of that. However, I mean, why did the Beatles break up? Petty jealousy, just resentment, and everybody wanted to be the man. And so you can have the greatest thing in the world going, but these fundamental flaws in human character and who we are can derail things, and you're already seeing a lot of that with Elon Musk quarreling with some of the other members of the cabinet, and they're all there. They've got this great thing. They have the opportunity to do so much, but then at that level, and especially at that level where you're literally running the government and you're a billionaire, I can't even imagine the battle of egos. There was something going on. Elon Musk and somebody, another billionaire who's a cabinet official, were just screaming right outside, screaming at each other right outside the Oval Office last week, it was reported. And so, that'll be something that, unfortunately, they'll have to figure out, that most people operating at such a high level, whether it be in entertainment or media or government, haven't been able to do. And that's with a Democratic Party who, is going to get its act together, at least in terms of opposition. However, this what I'm seeing right now, this big step forward, this AOC and Bernie Sanders tour has just been more of the same. As I said the last time I was on with you, there was this Greek maxim that a man is blessed if he can see himself as others see him. And I said, thankfully, the Democrats have never received that blessing because they're basically just doubling down on all the wackiness that got them routed last time. So we'll see where they go. Obviously, the path is always fraught with peril. Hopefully they'll be able to navigate it better than most. But still good. There is still momentum behind the Trump train right now. Still a lot of steam in it. We'll see where it goes.
So here's my recommendation for the next 100 days. We need Congress to engage in Operation Codify. Okay, I think that if Donald Trump really put his efforts to this, he's a reality TV star. If anybody can do it, it could be the president of the United States. We need to put pressure on Congress that you can't slow walk. You got to get small bills and you got to pass them rapid fire, boom, bada, boom, 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 codifying what Trump's done in the first 100 days. If you do that, you will create a legacy that will be literally eternally historic, James, and that's not an understatement.
He's on his way. I mean, it would have to be 3 months is not a term. 3 months is a good start, and it's a short start at that. I mean, it's not even close to being a full year. However, as you say, we are getting close to the point where a lot of incoming administrations spend their political currency, and it begins to shift to the midterms. But that's how quickly it happens. So, yeah, I mean, there is certainly, Sam, I agree 100%, certainly the potential and the opportunity to do historic things, the likes of which I've certainly never seen an American president to do, perhaps in many ways that no American president has ever done in my lifetime or in any lifetime. He has that opportunity and he has that will to power. Trump has the attitude and the just inability to allow himself to be thrown off course by his detractors. He has overcome all of it. Lawsuits, convictions, attempted assassinations, constant demonization in the media to get back to where he is. And I think in a way God's hand may be in this. We'll see.
We shall see, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just telling you right now what's missing and who deserves the blame for any failures over the last 100 days, even though Donald's not perfect, is Congress. In my opinion, Congress is the problem. Look, Congress could impeach these judges. Congress could reduce spending. Congress could back Doge and codify. Okay, Trump wants to right now defund Radio Free Europe. Well, a judge just said, nope, you got to spend the big money. You got to do it. You don't have authority, President. See, Congress could codify and back Trump's moves and make this real, and they could do it today. But the people failing us right now is your members of Congress. And the reason I tell you that is in 2026, we can remove all 435 members of the House. The sooner the better, James.
I see that now you're speaking my language. Yeah, we need to get rid of all this stuff. No, but seriously, yes, you have obviously the majority of the Republican Congress who is entirely on board with Trump's initiatives, 100%. And then you've got the recalcitrant Republicans who are going along with it, but are in some form of opposition. They've got just a sliver of a majority in the House and the Senate, and they need basically to be operating at full capacity, at full efficiency. And that's tough. That's tough to play that game and to keep everybody on board. But we'll see. We'll see if they can do it. So far, there hasn't been a lot good coming out of Congress, mostly through executive orders. I'd like to see that change, but that's a uphill battle.
All right, what do you think the summer's going to look like? Are you expecting a bunch of violence, or do you think we can somehow kind of get a little bit more of a stalemate or a back away? What do you think is going to happen?
I think you'll see the Democrat. I don't think it'll be a summer of violence. Now, the election, the summer of 2027 going into the election year, the summer of 2028, the next election year, that there could certainly be some violence there. You can never, ever discount the potential for violence with Antifa and BLM still out there. I don't think you'll see violence this summer, though. I think you will see the Democrats begin to formulate a plan of opposition that's a little more coherent than what we've seen the last 3 months, and they'll begin to retool and be back with their demonic best.
I pray you're right, James, because I don't want violence, but I'm telling you right now, they're sure ratcheting up the rhetoric, and it wouldn't take but some wacko to take action on their, quote, recommendation. And, the more we take away their money, the more they're like a cornered hostile animal, right? Thanks, James.